Oh, hello everyone. Good evening. We apologize for the delay. Uh, I welcome I welcome you all to the webinar on engaging youth in resilience and climate action by Sphere India, an initiative to engage the youth in DRR conversation for a resilient India. In our endeavor to build resilience, the young generation not only needs to participate but lead. This is the whole purpose of organizing this event. Every year, natural and human-induced hazards affect millions of children and youth. Children and youth are particularly vulnerable during and after disaster and experience increased problems. Young people must be involved in risk reduction because the young generation will experience more significant disasters in the coming years because of the impact of climate change. Children and youth benefit most from reducing the risk and impact of disaster. Building the capacity of youth can create a substantial effect on the community to make them more resilient. Welcome you all. I am Nitish Barole, a coordinator, youth resilience and engagement at Sphere India. In the past few years, I have been working on youth leadership and youth engagement in DRR and climate change at the community at national level. This webinar will be an excellent opportunity for young people in India to discuss and share their concern and ideas to tackle these issues to build a resilient India. So the overall program will be, we will invite different speakers and they will share their experience, and after that we will have a Q&A session. To begin with this webinar, I invite Ms. Neha Soneji, Program Director, Education Tech Mahindra Foundation. Neha works on the strategy for the education programs and supports the location teams and partner organizations to implement the education projects in teachers training, full school development, and disability schools. She also manages stakeholder engagement and collaborates with various organizations to bring innovations to the program. Today, Ms. Neha will be speaking on imparting citizenship education from the school days and how we can build resilience by enhancing capacities of children. Over to you, Ms. Neha.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nitish. Thanks for the invitation. Pleasure to be a part of this panel discussion on such a very important topic. To begin with, I would like to, before I, touch upon the points that Nitish just mentioned, I would like to start with something that our parent company, Mahindra and Mahindra, released a few years back. So what they did a campaign on, saving ocean life, and how the campaign was launched was through a video. And I just want to share what was there in the video because it has stayed with me for a long time. So what happens is there is a resort, there is a swimming pool where there are families and children playing in the swimming pool. And suddenly, through a pipe, there are plastic bottles and wrappers and can thrown into the swimming pool. To the strange surprise of everyone, of course, people get angry and they're like, "Our children are playing; they can get hurt, and they will just start bleeding and things like that." And they go to the management of the resort to tell them that this is not acceptable. That's when the video shows that, with just 30 tons of plastic waste, we humans became so uncomfortable when it was thrown into our environment. Just imagine millions and millions and tons of waste that gets thrown into the ocean every year. How is the marine life going to feel about it, right? And it was a very impactful video, and the campaign name was "Cut the Crap." How can we reduce the generation of crap? And I think that was the purpose of the video, to create that sensitivity among people, among children, about youth, about crisis that is, going to impact all of us in the near future. So I think the first thing, to answer your question, Nitish, about citizenship education for children and how to build these skills in children from when they are in school. I think the first thing that needs to be done is to create that sensitivity amongst children about what is happening around them. What are some of the things that they need to start considering, even if they are not getting impacted by them directly at this point in time? To quote an example, in one of the projects, what we do is we have something called a student parliament. So what happens is there's a parliament at the school level and there's a parliament at classroom level as well. And there are sub-parliaments. Some of them look after the cleanliness of the classroom in the school. Some of them look after food wastage, that, the food that is children bring in the tiffin, is that getting wasted? How can that be used more effectively? Some of them look after, things like how are the walls being maintained. Some of them look after if there is any conflict management that needs to be done, how to maintain peace in the classroom and at the school level. So I think opportunities like these give children the opportunity to, become sensitive about their surroundings, people around them. Second example is, lot of the schools do their annual trips, zoo visit, or for example, a picnic to some place. I think these opportunities, apart from just the underlining factor of having fun at these events, can be used as an opportunity to build that sensitivity amongst children, from the smallest of example in a zoo visit, how can we, if children are getting excited about the animals, how can we just sensitize them and tell them that, look, they live just like we do, and, what are some of the issues that they might be facing, and how can we make their life in the zoo better, and things like that. So I think just building that sensitivity amongst the children. Now, another thing is that just having just like we have period in the classroom, right? Math period, English period, history period, just having some time slotted in the timetable cautiously on current affairs. I think that is not done enough in schools, unfortunately. Sometimes we get very uncomfortable to discuss with children what's happening around us, what are some of the issues that the world is tackling today. And I think that, just bringing the current affairs in the classroom. Let's hear from the children. What is it that they are thinking? What do they know about the issue? What are their thoughts? What are their opinions? I think they should know what kind of challenges they're going to face when they grow up and how to deal with them. So I think the entire current affairs bit, which is very conveniently sometimes not discussed in the classroom, thinking that the children may or may not benefit from it, or they might get scared, or they might have some bad influence. I think let's use those opportunities to build the kind of awareness that is required in children, with respect to climate change, with respect to political issues, anything that is happening at a national as well as a global level. Um, and I think also that, children are sensitive by nature. You will find them running to save a dog if the dog is getting wet in the rain than any adult doing that. So it's about just honing that sensitivity. Just give them opportunities to appreciate that sensitivity and make it more and more stronger. I think the other point that I want to share, Nitish, with the group is about the influence of social emotional learning that has taken place in the schools in the last, few years. In private schools in India, definitely, and even government schools are following suit. And I think the aspect of social emotional learning really is a game changer and will be a game changer in the years to come. It talks about self-awareness, it talks about techniques like mindfulness, it talks about how to make children aware of their own emotions. What are they going through? How are they feeling? If they're feeling happy, what does happiness look like? If they're feeling sad, what does sadness look like? Why do we feel frustrated? If they're aware of these things, they are in a better position to deal with their emotions, at the stage that they are and in later stage in adulthood as well. So I think this entire bit on social emotional learning, and another important aspect too is, of course, is the resilience. We all, including children, will be our normal selves when life goes as planned. But it's only when life throws curved balls at us that we are really tested. And I think it is that test that the children need to prepare themselves for and build their resilience. Because honestly, looking at how things are changing rapidly with the next generation, we are nowhere going to be away from issues, global issues, national issues. We are all going to get impacted one day. And I think the voices need to be heard, and they have to be resilient in the face of these issues that are going to come to them. So I think just that bit of, they will figure out math, they will figure out science, but if they're not able to figure out their own emotional balance, it is going to be a tough one for them to sustain the kind of challenges that will come their way. And I think lastly that it is very difficult to change adults and to, modify how adults think. If we start at the right point. If we start with children in school, I think our journey to facilitate this learning for them is going to be easier. Of course, young adults is another group which is very critical, but I think it will be easier with children. Young adults are still in their teens and they are, in a space that they want to explore. They may not be in the space to learn as much as children when they are really young. So start today, start as soon as possible, and kids come up with really, really ideas that sometimes I don't even think. They have plethora of ideas which can be used to solve issues, global issues, national issues, everything around us. So I think let's give them that opportunity. Let's give them that space to explore themselves, to explore their thoughts. And I'm sure that, they will come out more resilient than we can ever imagine. So Nitish, that is what was from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Neha. And surely we will get back to you again in the Q&A sessions. And as you mentioned about this youth parliament at different level and giving them opportunity to explore their own ways. And again, in this situation, even during the COVID time, we have seen, the mental health issue is like really increasing, and the discussion what you said is very important, is especially learning about the emotional balance in the children. So thank you very much. uh, Moving on, I would like to invite Mr. Himanshu Shekhar Mishra, senior editor political and current affairs from NDTV. He has extensively reported and researched on the issues related with the climate related disasters like floods, legal rights of disaster victims, threats posted by the climate change to the sustainability of development process and industry, the potential impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the sustainable development goals. His research paper on the unprecedented flood in Jammu and Kashmir in September 2014 was selected for presentation at the third United Nations World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction in Sendai, Japan in March 2015. We'll be discussing about increasing youth participation in the parliamentary process and policy framing, and how we can building partnership and collaboration for meaningful participation for children and youth. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Nitish. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I had sent a PowerPoint presentation to you. Is it possible for you to play it now so that we do it in a more structured way?
Yes, sir. Give me a minute.
Yeah. So this is largely the subject that I wish to discuss with all of you, sharing some important ideas that I have about largely the role of youth in disaster management, and why that role is very, very critical for developing a climate smart, disaster resilient societies in every part of the world. I mean, not only India, but any part of the world. And essentially, the focus will be on what are the larger challenges India faces, the growing role of youth, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's own ideas about the role of universities, students in disaster management, and what needs to be done actually for capacity building of our youth. Now, this is a very, very complex subject. Capacity building, of course, would involve the government institutions, private institutions, educational institutions, social institutions, NGOs. All of us will have to collectively come together to actually build up the capacity of our youth, to impart them more knowledge, more information about disaster management. And this is, of course, should be a national effort. Next slide, please. Now, as we know that youth are an important social resource, especially for communities who are living in disaster prone zones. And they have, of course, a very, very important role to play in all three parts of the what is called the disaster cycle. There is a pre-disaster phase, there is a disaster phase, and there is a post-disaster phase. And I think youth have a very, very critical role to play, not only in disaster mitigation, in formulating disaster mitigation strategies, in sensitizing youth about the threat from disasters, especially those communities living in disaster-prone areas. Youth have a very critical role to play as a first responder when a disaster hits an area. And as you know, that they are more capable than many other sections of the society, like the senior citizens, children, or those who are medically ill. And youth need to be trained how they can be developed and groomed into volunteers as first responder in a disaster situation. And even in the post-disaster phase, when the society struggles to regain the pre-disaster level, when the reconstruction and rehabilitation work needs to be expedited, I think a lot of social work is required during such periods. And I've seen covering disasters that youth, of course, have a very predominant role even in the post-disaster phase. And I just mentioned that as a vital first responder, they need to be trained how to help senior citizens, children, medically ill, or any other section of the society which requires support from the youth. Next slide. Now, we do know there have been debates in India, abroad, about the vital role that youth can play in dissemination of knowledge about disaster management in a disaster-prone society or community. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, strengthening disaster mitigation measures, and also importance of training and knowledge for capacity building of youth is very, very important. Now, one of the first things that needs to be done is to make disaster management as a mandatory subject of study in schools and college syllabus. At the moment, I think I need to study more on this, but one would assume that disaster management as a subject of study is not a mandatory subject, or even I do not know how many universities actually offer it as an optional course at the moment. But if you want to build up the capacity of our youth, you have to start training them. You have to start imparting them basic knowledge about disaster management. We need disaster management workshops, training manuals for school students and colleges. We do know that in the last couple of years, there has been a significant change in India's approach in disaster management. And we do get details from NDRF, NDMA about the number of workshops that are being conducted in schools and colleges. And Nitish, I think your idea of a parliament for DRR, of course, is a very, very significant effort in this direction, because that brainstorming that the youth would do and that space they will get to actually share their ideas would, of course, help create that knowledge in the society that is critically needed at the present moment of time. Next slide, please. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in fact, has listed out a 10-point agenda on disaster risk reduction. Now, this is India's central strategy to actually combat disasters. And this 10-point agenda he had outlined at the Asian Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction. It has been studied. The implementation of this 10-point agenda on DRR is in different stages of implementation now. We do know a high-level committee was set up a couple of months after Prime Minister's presentation, and this has been work in progress. Now, in the context of the subject that we are discussing, Prime Minister Modi had included this in his 10-point charter for combating disasters when he propounded the idea of developing a network of universities to work on disaster-related issues. Now, this is exactly the quote that he had given. It will be helpful to develop a network of universities and academic institutions to work on disaster-related aspects. As part of this network, different universities could specialize in multidisciplinary research on disaster issues most relevant to them. Remember, there are states which are more disaster-prone, and they have a better wherewithal to actually combat disasters. And they also need to share the knowledge that they have with those states which are, for the moment, not very highly disaster prone, but they need to be trained because climate change is inducing more and more abnormal changes in global weather, in India's weather. So now I think we need to develop this network where those universities who are ahead of others in disaster research can share their best practices. can share the kind of knowledge systems they have created in their campus in terms of educating their students, young students, senior students, and how those best practices, how those teaching modules, how those workshop modules can become a role model for other universities to follow. And I think what Prime Minister's idea largely has been that when you develop a network of universities, it creates a greater impetus in terms of, involving youth, building up their capacities. Because remember, the young mind is the best mind to acquire new knowledge. We all know that. And I think if India has to become a disaster resilient society, then we need to train these millions and millions of youth who are a great social asset for us. And this process has to start in school and colleges. And I think we not only need a network of universities, but I think we also should think about developing a network of schools, for instance. There are schools we know in Delhi who are regularly inviting disaster experts, where students are increasingly being exposed to different kinds of hazards they might have to face. And on the NDMA website, on NDRF website, you can see they have made these educational films also for schools and colleges. There are animation films of what a kid has to do if the earthquake strikes and he's in the classroom. These kind of basic fundamental education is that process has now been initiated at a very larger level in the country. And I think with this, we need to take it much forward. Next slide. Now, some basic facts about what India now needs to do. Prime Minister Modi, and of course, I just mentioned him about his idea of a 10-point charter. Actually, when he went to Glasgow to attend the climate change conference, he made a series of commitments. Now, these are binding on every government institution, private institutions, individuals, citizens, and we all have to work together to collectively achieve these targets. Now, the first slide, Nitish, please. Yeah, next slide. Now, as part of the national statement delivered at the COP26 in Glasgow, India made the following announcements. Now, these are commitments which are binding on us. One, India's non-fossil energy capacity to reach 500 gigawatt by 2030. India will meet 50% of its energy requirements with renewable energy by 2030. These are very ambitious targets. Next slide. India will reduce its total projected carbon emissions by 1 billion tons from now till 2030. India will reduce the carbon intensity of its economy by 45% by 2030 over 2005 levels. And by 2070, this is the most important and most debated commitment that Prime Minister made at the Glasgow conference, India will achieve the target of net zero emissions. That essentially means that if we want to protect planet, if India wants to protect its people, its environment, then these are 5 very critical commitments that we have made. Now we need a national movement actually to achieve these targets. And I think youth and children have a very critical role to play in terms of disseminating knowledge about these basic concepts. And they will be, how effectively they can do will depend on how well they themselves understand these concepts. Now, that is exactly where imparting basic knowledge about what it means if India says we will reduce the carbon intensity of our economy by 45% is a very complex subject. What it means if India will achieve the target of net zero emissions, these are very technical subjects. Now, but these are very critical to combating climate change and protecting India's environment. And so we need to train our youth about what are the targets India has set for itself, and what needs to be done to achieve these targets. And I think in the implementation process, the youth will have a very important role to play. And in this parliament for DRR, I think this can be a good subject for a debate in the sense that, so these are the big 5 targets that Prime Minister has made at the Glasgow conference, and this is abiding on every citizen. So what needs to be done? So the House can be divided. There can be people making arguments on we need to do A, we need to do B, we need to do C, or these targets are not feasible, or why they think they are not feasible. That's the big national debate that is needed. And I think when the information is percolated about deliberations at such big platforms like the envisioned platform of a parliament for DRR, I think these will become very critical issues for deliberations among the youth of the country. Next slide. Now, why are we discussing this subject? We're discussing because...
sorry, sir. I request you to, wrap up this first
Okay. Okay. Just 2 more minutes. Yeah. Just 2 more minutes. And the reason why we need to desperately act now, the reason why youth and children needs to be more proactive, and this is kind of a war that we have to collectively fight to combat climate changes. So just look at the last 2 slides of my presentation. The NASA data on climate change says the level of carbon dioxide in the air today is highest ever in 650,000 years. Now, 17 of the 18 warmest years in the last 136 years have been recorded after 2001, with the year 2016 being the warmest ever. Now, the next slide, I think it's not visible. The increasing global temperature is the global sea level has risen by an average of 3.1 millimeters per year. NASA's GRACE satellites have recorded a gradual decline in ice mass in both Antarctica and Greenland, and the average increase in global sea level is close to 7 inches. And we do know that there are islands which are disappearing. So that is exactly the challenge that we have to collectively combat, and we need to actually build up the capacity of our youth to actually take the next big step towards achieving all these to meet all these challenges. Nitish, you can circulate this among the participants so that they can read more about the presentation I had prepared.
Sure, sir, and thank you very much. And it's indeed listening to you about the in-depth knowledge you have. It's inspiring, and also the commitment India has made in the COP will be a great subject of debate, as well as the opportunity for young people to learn and to build their capacities. So thank you very much, and we will get back to you, sir.
Thank you.
Now, I like to invite Ms. Mercy, Program Manager, World Vision India. She's working with World Vision India for the last 21 years, presently looking after the area development program at Northeast Delhi, and also managing a corporate project that works with the street children. She's a member of the National Disaster Management Team at World Vision India and trained on programming in emergencies. Also a trainer on Channels of Hope for child protection and child protection minimum standards, thus conducts various trainings for staff, community, and stakeholders. Today, she will be talking about building youth parliamentaries to advocate for a resilient future and how effective group debates and role-playing strategies among the youth can be used. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Spear India, for giving me this opportunity. My topic today is building young parliamentarians to advocate for a resilient future. I'm working with World Vision for over 2 decades now, and it was in 2002 that I had heard of Parliament, Youth Parliament, Child Parliament, and we have, as an organization, have witnessed the great impact child and youth parliamentarians have made in advocating for various issues in the communities, which includes disaster preparedness and climate action. So today, I would rather talk about our experience as an organization and the transformation that we see when capacity building programs are held for children. As you know, we are a child-focused organization, and we work with children groups, and there are over 1,000 children. So what we do is we select a few children. So we have around 100, 120 children who are part of the child parliament, and there's extensive trainings given to them and capacity building programs focusing on SDGs and child rights. So we have ministers. Every child parliament will have, if it is a Delhi level, you have the chief minister and his set of ministers. And if it is at the national level, we have the prime minister and also a minister for all the SDGs. And this morning, I was just talking to one of the child parliamentarians who was very active in 2002. Just wanted to know what they are doing and how being part of this has really helped them. And he is Irshad, and he presently is in Pune. He has completed his engineering. And he was just talking about how amazing his experience in the child parliament was. He said, though they started as, just getting together, having a lot of fun, down the line, they realized it was serious business and they can do a lot for the community. He also shared about his friend Neeraj, who's now a Pradhan in the community. And not just the two of them, there are stories of many more child and youth parliamentarians who are very actively engaged, especially when it comes to child climate change and preparedness. They are the first ones to immediately help the community. Presently, I'm working in Northeast Delhi district, and we have formed 3 child parliamentarians. And I'm so proud that today, when this subject was given to me, I said, this is something we are doing, and I can see the difference these children and the youth are making in the communities. When they talk about SDG, we have a minister for SDG 13, the climate action, and they are influencing the government. We've been doing a lot of joint programs with the government, and during a recent interaction with the district magistrate on Environment Day, and when one of the child parliamentarians was talking to her, she said, Mercy, we don't need to, talk about, Fridays for Future and Greta Thunberg somewhere. We have Sheetal in our own district who can be a Greta Thunberg. So that is a comment, and that's when I realized, yes, child parliament, the youth parliamentarians can make a big difference in our community. It helps them to have a platform where they are taking decisions, where their leadership skills are being built, there's communication skills, and it helps them have a vision for the future. And presently, we have a Delhi inclusive child parliament where around 40 NGOs together, we have children across Delhi, and they meet regularly presently on an online platform. And we also have a national inclusive child parliament where children across the country come together. So it's a proud moment when the children from my community are members of the Delhi Inclusive Child Parliament, when they are the members of the National Inclusive Child Parliament, they are the ministers of SDG 13 and Zero Hunger. So this is something we've been practically doing in our communities, and I think they can, youth, when we work with youth, they are influencers. They bring about transformations. They are the ones who can be our community radio, who are creating awareness in the community to various engagements, and definitely change makers. And today I thought, before I end my topic here, I would have one of the child parliamentarians, a 16-year-old boy, Krish, who's with me here, and let him talk to you about what they do as in the child parliament. So Krish, would you like to share?
Hi everyone, my name is Krish and I am from Northeast Delhi. So I am a member of Delhi Inclusive Children Parliament for 3 years. When I was 13, I joined, and now I'm 16. So I've got a lot of experience, and I've strengthened my confidence during this time. I have met a lot of MLAs in Vidhan Sabha. I went in 2019, and we say and we demand our things that we want. So sorry for hesitating. I'm not good in English that much. Not only in Delhi level, in our local child parliament, we have done a lot of things. As you know, climate change is a big problem in our country. So we started by spreading awareness in our locality by mime shows, nukkad nataks, and rallies. In one of our rallies, we SDM, sub district magistrate of our area, also participated. And as we thought that just awareing people, the youth and the kids, the old age person, just awareing is not enough. So we started cleaning the shores of the Yamuna by ourselves, in which the councillor of our area Sushma Mishra helped us by giving us resources and also sending people to help us. And last month, we planted more than 300 plants in an abandoned park near the Yamuna. So it's been a good time working with the help, working with the government, and I can say thanks to World Vision and both government to help us in building a good country future, and we look forward to do more things. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Krish. So this was Krish, and we have so many more children. And this is practically just telling you how the child parliament helps and the youth. Now we have some of them who have become 18 plus, and today they are mentors, and they are so confident talking about SDGs and the need to make a difference in their own communities. And so I thank you for this opportunity and for this time. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Mercy, and really appreciate of your efforts of building children parliaments at the national and at the state level, and sharing your experience with all of us. Also, thank you for inviting Chris to show the real impact you are creating at the community level. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on, I would like to invite Ms. Namrata Sharma, Junior Research Officer at Nidm. She is a mental health and SRHR advocate. She has a master's degree in applied psychology and a post-graduation diploma in guidance and counseling. Currently working at child-centric disaster risk reduction at NIDM. She has trained and provided guidance to government officials on issues faced by children and adolescents during disasters. She has been a part of over 100 trainings and webinars. Today, she will be speaking on youth leadership and development through national youth policy and youth-led community engagement for disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation. Over to you, Ms. Namrata.
Thank you, Nitish. I'd like to share my screen quickly. Just let me know if you can see my presentation.
Yes, Namrata.
Great. Krish definitely lifted all of our moods, because having a live example right in front of our eyes is very, very encouraging. And you know, when we sit in our offices, yes, we're doing a lot of groundwork, but when it actually reaches the youth, it is very, very motivating. So thank you so much for bringing Krish in front of all of us, Mercy ma'am. Now, I would today want to talk about volunteerism as to the key component which will actually bring youth and adolescents into the role of DRR and CCA. And beginning with a little basic as to how we actually classify youth in our community, whether it's rural or urban. First, we classify them according to age. They can be a student or a non-student. They can belong to a different community, rural, urban, coastal, or tribal. And the gender, there can be any gender, male, female, transgender. They could be employed or unemployed. And they can be from any kind of socioeconomic background, whether poor, middle, or rich class. Now, why am I talking about this classification is because there is no distinction when it comes to volunteerism. Anybody can volunteer in making this world a better place, in helping other people. All we need to do is to build some altruistic behavior, more resilient youth in our community in today's time. So I think even one of our panelists mentioned that the kind of qualities that a youth has is much, much more than a senior citizen or a person or a woman who might be pregnant, who might have a responsibility of a young child, or maybe a very small child. So youth has the most powerful characteristics, I would say, and they can be used very well during or post a disaster. Now, according to the WHO, youth is considered to be between 10 to 19 years old, and sometimes it can also range from 15 to 24 years old. And because with age, an individual's physical strength and mental strength grows, thus we can distinguish the kind of tasks that we can allot them during these difficult times. Now, what does volunteerism involve? Volunteerism could be defined as a set of individual and collective actions aim to achieve common public good. So this can be offered, of course, all of us know that volunteerism is clearly a free service. It is not something that can be forced. It sometimes can be paid, but mostly it is not, and it comes out of your own will, right? Now, why do we engage youth in volunteerism? What is, like, how can we use them to the maximum capacity? Now, youth are unmatched by any demographic group, like I said, in any manner. Empowered young people can become independent and responsible citizens. Clearly, we need such people today in our society. There is a lot of chaos happening in today's time, and especially when we look at the condition of our earth, when we look at the climatic changes, the pandemic that is happening, we need a lot of support from the youth. I didn't realize that I have 10 minutes and I made a lot of slides, but I would quickly like to surf through as to how we can involve youth into volunteerism, right? The very first, there are different kinds, and the very first one is service-based, as to we can use their, their services in different manners, such as manpower to complement practitioners. They can be helpers. Okay, there can be skill-based volunteerism. Like, let's say somebody, there is a young person who has done engineering, or who's an IT person. They can volunteer in building apps or designing websites. There are some youth who have done maybe different kind of engineering, where they, like civil engineering, they can help volunteer with different NGOs and organizations in disaster prone areas. Event-based volunteerism, again, can be an ad hoc manpower support. So any kind of support in any of these three forms can be taught to young people. These are the three ways in which they can highly volunteer and be helpful in the society. Now, these are some strategies, but I wouldn't go through them. I will share my presentation. I remember one of the panelists talking about how volunteer young people can participate in disaster-prone areas, post-disasters, and here I've clearly mentioned on what tasks they can take upon, like assessing community vulnerabilities, risks, and capacities. Here, young people can identify hazards and risks and threats. They can be very good communicators. We can interact with them. So a part of my work also involves conducting trainings with young people, and CCDRR department particularly is currently conducting a lot of 5-day training of trainers, where they train young people, because the main the concept of core objective is to engage young people to learn about disaster management and training them. So one day out of those 5 days, we talk about a particular building. Let's say we pick a building out of the entire institute or the university that we're in, and we talk to the young people there. So when, if we're in a university where we ask, like the boys hostel, we pick 5 students from there, and we ask our trainers to interact with them. We ask them what kind of issues that they face, what is the infrastructural faults that you see in the building. Is there any functional fault, administrative fault? All these are then recorded, and then we go for a physical visit to the building, and we actually assess these issues. So young people can tell you a lot, because they are currently in that situation, and they can be very good responders. So interacting in such situations can be very helpful with helpful for us. Now there are, of course, different types of civic engagements that individual adolescents can involve in. Very first one is volunteering and service, like I just said. Now this can be offline or online. Now like, let's just talk about Krish right here. This was a way of volunteering, right? It was an online volunteering where he was sharing his experience, his live experience, to motivate another child. Maybe if somebody is watching in the audience, they can get motivated, they can get in touch with World Vision and further contribute to the purpose. So this is one way of volunteerism. Then there can be mobilizing peers and or community members. Of course, when we start within our homes, then we reach outside in the neighborhood, in the schools, in the colleges. So mobilizing peers, gathering people around you, actually building capacity with those who are already near you in the close knitted group, right? Participation in action research. This can probably come at a later stage when you're in your educational institutes, when you're studying, or you are practically doing internships in the field. Media initiatives. Social media is a very, very strong medium nowadays, and the youth is very much involved in such activities. They are very sharp, quick, and they grasp onto trends very, very easily. So this can be another way where youth can, volunteer through social media. And yes, of course, all the, these I've listed down, but I will not focus on them because I want to give you a few examples on how youth during the disasters have actually come forward and helped so many people in the communities, not just in urban, but a lot in the rural areas. Some people might think that what can children really do? They need to sit at homes, they need to protect themselves, their families need to keep them safe. But there have been groups of children who have literally stepped out of homes and spread awareness, build capacity, such as the Blue Brigade. They support women and children in rural and urban areas of Chhattisgarh to access essential services and to reduce adverse impacts of COVID-19. Now, somebody might say that what benefit did these children get out of it? There is no benefit. I think the only motive that they had was to protect their village, their community, to build more capacity regarding, about COVID-19, about vaccines, wearing masks, and that's what they did. They actually called it the Blue Brigade. Efforts of about 25,000 youth enrolled in the Blue Brigade was an initiative by UNICEF. And apart from this, during COVID-19, there were other groups in other parts of the country, such as Madhya Pradesh, who decided, to create awareness and build groups and become volunteers so that they could do door-to-door campaigns in their village to talk about vaccination and also get them vaccinated. Because sometimes for the doctors who come from outside as teams, of course, we all watched the news, it was very difficult for them to get in, to build a rapport with these people in the village. They were not trusting them very easily. So these people literally created a base for them, because when you see someone from your own community, you trust them very easily. Okay. There was another group of children which was called the Library on Wheels. These children created this small library on a scooty. They took it from door to door. If any child needed a book to read, any subject related, they would give it to them. They had no purpose, they had no personal motive, but their only aim was to just keep people positive, spread optimism, and of course never let the education process stop. Another child called Hikhat Seth, he built an online learning platform for Gujarati students where they could learn online. There was another girl called and she started her own online community radio where she talked about COVID issues, and she could actually spread a lot of awareness in her own area through that radio channel. So these are some examples of how young children actually got who were taught, and then capacity building was done, and then it was brought into action, it was implemented in real life. So these small groups of children can actually make a huge change, because everyone knows that an ocean is made of, I don't know, I can't remember the term, but boon boon se sagar banta hai. But so that's how young people can actually participate in activities where we can promote better knowledge about DRR and climate change. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Namrata. Really appreciate, especially the discussion about the volunteerism and how they can play a big role in the community, especially after disaster. Thank you very much. And we really appreciate if you will share your presentation with us, so we will forward it to all the participants. Thank you. Now, I'd like to invite Mr. Bhupendra Mishra, founder of the Resilient Foundation. Bhupendra is a grassroots worker and a disaster management professional. He's actively contributing to the industry for the past 10 years. Bhupendra has founded the non-profit organization, the Resilient Foundation, which is working on building resilience community through prevention and preparedness measures. He has received Indira Gandhi NSS Award from the President of India. He also worked in the Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation as a consultant and worked as a Gandhi Fellow. We will be sharing on the need to form a well-equipped cadre of first responders to act as a task force group for any emergency scenario, and building an inclusive, sensitive generation for inclusive DRR and climate change action. Over to you, Vindra.
Thank you, Nitish. Hope I'm audible.
Yes.
So thank you for the invitation. So many learnings for me too happening here. I'm listening so many things in this presentation from other panelists. As you mentioned, as Nitish mentioned, we in the Resilient Foundation are building resilient communities and training first responder, which was mentioned by Himanshu. We need more first responder to, in first responder, we need to build capacities of youth. So we work around this and worked in, we are based in Palghar and worked in Uttarakhand and Delhi and in Maharashtra at various parts. So I would like to share something with you on climate action. I was really like searching what exactly action we might take as an individual to reverse the climate change. So recently we piloted one program. We selected 20 youngsters from surrounding communities. These youngsters are from like lower middle class background, and their parents are daily wage earners, and they don't have much things at their plate for learning. So we chose them to see how well sensitized they are, because we all are from like this kind, like I myself coming from this background, and it took me a lot of time to build my understanding on disaster management and climate change and all. So we started 15 days program with them. On very first day, I asked them, according to you, what is causing the climate change? What is the main reason behind this? And the answer was same: population, urbanization, industrialization, things like that, blah, blah, blah. So many reasons they gave. And then similar response we are getting in various, like in Mumbai or maybe in other metro cities. Everyone is like sharing this kind of example. Ki iski wajah se ye sari cheezein ho rahi hai. I asked them another question: what action we must take as an individual to reverse this climate change? Again, the response was same कि हमें प्लास्टिक का यूज कम करना है, हमें ट्री प्लांट करना है, इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन बहुत हो रहा है, उस पे पॉपुलेशन बहुत हो रहा है, and things like that. Again, these things we are listening from a decade. I guess more than a decade we are listening this. 2-3 day back, I received in one of the group, I received a message saying कि government ने फिर से plastic ban कर दिया. And so many times we have banned this plastic, so many times, and we everyone aware इतना tree plantation हमने कर दिया है. I worried ये सारे plants जाते कहाँ पर है. So things are like that is happening, and nobody is talking on the individual efforts कि हम अकेले क्या करेंगे. We are blaming the government, we are blaming the industries, we are blaming others, but not seeing कि हम as a individual क्या कर रहे हैं. Nobody is talking कि हम minimalism को कैसे approach करें, minimalism को कैसे accept करें, how we can reduce our carbon footprint, how we can reduce our water footprint. There is one example of youngsters. There is a one block in Palghar, Mukhada, which is very badly hit by drought. वहाँ पानी की बहुत कमतरता है. And this group went there to survey those villages. And क्योंकि ये बहुत लंबा प्रोग्राम था, they stayed in a hotel and at another block. होटल में थे, इसलिए बहुत सारा पानी मिला उनको, and they were wasting waters on their daily routines. On other hand, they were surveying this village कि यहाँ पे पानी क्यों नहीं है. So there was a contrast thing we're seeing here कि एक साइड में हमारे actions कुछ और कह रहे हैं और हमारी बातें कुछ और कह रही हैं. And this is really happening surrounding us कि हम webinars पर या dialogue series पर या फिर अलग-अलग प्रोग्राम में बातें कर रहे हैं, but we are not very well sensitized to it. Like Mercy said, I'm glad Mercy bring those components here. We need to sensitize ourselves first कि as an individual हम क्या कर सकते हैं. I was also reflecting कि क्यों मतलब ये इतनी सारी चीजें पता होने के बावजूद भी हमने इतने सारे actions लिए हैं. Someone was mentioning in the message कि we need a strong policy. I guess we have enough policies, even enough the act and the resolution, everything. We need now a strong determination, strong action as an individual action. कि हम खुद क्या करेंगे? Can I offer less material? जब भी बातें आती हैं climate और जैसे अभी we know, everyone know share market has been hit and economic crisis होने वाला है, something like that. Everyone is like वहाँ चले गए, climate change को भूल गए और वहाँ पे फिर वो build up करना चालू कर दिया कि how we can spend more, how we can purchase more, on how we can produce more. और इस सारे चक्कर में we again forget about the climate change. कोविड में हमने देखा again कि without any effort हमारी गंगा क्लीन हो गई, हमारी नदियां क्लीन हो गई. हम पंजाब और बाकी कई रीजन से हिमालय देख पा रहे थे. The sky was so clean and we were listening so many bird chirping and all. जैसे ये कोविड का खत्म हुआ अगेन सारी चीजें धुंधली पड़ गई. तो हम ऐसा क्या कर रहे हैं कि कुछ दिनों में ये साफ हो जा रहा है और कुछ दिनों में फिर से हम क्लाइमेट चेंज को लेकर आ रहे हैं. तो my question to everyone is कि are we really caring about the climate change? And then there is a question arise जिसके लिए webinar है कि we need to invest in youth. So I was also reflecting youth क्या कि मतलब youth ने सिर्फ जिम्मेदारी ले ली है कि पूरा climate change का reverse करना, या it's everyone's responsibility. But every one of us knows that कि youth has a mindset of adapt fast. That's why हमें youth को train करने की जरूरत है. और एक और चीज जो मुझे समझ में आई कि youth has a dual mindset. We have an old tradition and there is a something new coming every day, and that's why there is a new tradition is happening. हर एक काम करने के तरीके को पुराने और नए तरीके से, and youth is like chirping between this and this. That's why, like Mercy, like Namrata and every panelist mentioned, we need to sensitize, we need to bring more awareness, we need to bring real action as an individual to these youths and other communities so that we can take real actions on the climate change. We are not just dialoguing on this, we are taking individual actions to stop climate change and to reverse climate change. I'm stopping here, not taking much time, open for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhupendra. Really appreciate you're giving emphasis on the individual efforts, and thank you for sharing your ground experience as well. So now on, this floor is open and we have time for a question and answer sessions. The participants are free to ask their questions to any of our speakers regarding the topics they spoke on. And if you want to ask, just raise your hand and we can unmute you from our side, or you can put your question in the chat. Yes, Abhishek.
Thank you so much, Nitish, and I thoroughly enjoyed the webinar. Thank you so much for putting it online so I could attend it. I had a question openly for all panelists. So I'm leading a youth-led and a youth-centric organization, which is trying to work in the development sector in policy broadly with a youth-centric agenda. So I wanted to ask, what is some of the guidance that that you would provide for youth-centric and youth-led initiatives? Because until now, what we have seen is youth-led initiatives being brought up to solve the bigger problems. But how useful, or what are the considerations that need to be made so that youth-led initiatives are also youth-centric in nature?
Check. You want to ask some specific speaker, or anybody can answer?
Anybody. It was open for all panelists because it was a very general question. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Hi, Abhishek. Hi, Nitish. Can I answer?
Yes, yes, sure.
So there is no particular answer to this because Abhishek, I need to ask you another question where I thinking. So yeah, as you mentioned, you have started something on and with the youth. So is this what kind of organization? What kind of are you looking for a guidance to build this organization, or are you looking guidance on how you can build your ideate your initiatives for this? So according to this, maybe someone can pick and answer this question. So can you bring more clarity to this?
Sure, sir. So my organization, Project Statecraft, it's a youth-led and a youth-centric policy think tank and an educational organization. So what we do is we use education and policy research as a tool to build to provide 21st century skills and policy understanding to young people. So they're more connected to their community. They understand the problems around them in a better manner, and are also able to take an initiative with the 21st century skills, which includes leadership skills, to build initiatives and to support people around them, be it in their schools, be it in their communities, to come up with youth-centric initiatives. So that was my question when it comes to youth-centric. Yeah.
So my only advice to you is that there are many platforms to support young initiatives and young programs or young organizations like SSA India, Limited India, and there are platforms. We might connect and I'll tell you maybe 10 of other organizations who may support you in your journey. So it's important. There was again a webinar happening, I guess, last year, where we were discussing how we can bring more youth-led organization. So उसमें एक gap समझ में आया कि we as a youngsters sometimes know कि कैसे solution को आगे लेकर जाना है या क्या काम करना है, but हमें ये नहीं पता कि organization successfully कैसे run करी जाती है या क्या क्या challenges आते हैं. Every day with all the restrictions, so many things are happening. So I request you to join. There are many platforms like Catalyst. Sphere India is one of the coalition. You can join Sphere India, and there are such platforms available. उसके अंदर जितने भी organization है, you can connect with those organization individually or individuals, and then someone can guide you in your process.
Thank you, sir. Definitely. Sir, I would like to connect with you after this webinar. How can I connect with you?
I'm sharing my number in message.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhupendra. If any other speaker wants to add some points to the Bhupendra response, please feel free. Okay.
Actually, yeah, I just want to say, even for children, we have a lot of coalitions where all the NGOs working for children, we come together, and that's where we have these capacity building programs. So if at all you're working with children and you're looking for, just connect, we do have an NGO and connect with me.
Sure, ma'am. We are actually working with quite a few schools. We are working with a couple of schools in South India. And now we're engaging with a lot of college students, and through them we are trying to reach out to their alumni and the other schools. So I would really like to connect with you as well after the session.
Sure. Yeah, I'll send my number.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Abhishek. Mr. Loy.
Okay. Yeah, I think you can hear me. No, thank you. Thank you for a very good webinar. And I want to particularly appreciate the strong implicit advocacy and focus on volunteers and volunteerism. I do believe that both young people as well as older people, particularly those who have just retired or who are about to retire, can devote a lot of time to voluntary activity. They still have a lot of energy left in them and they have capacity. So I would strongly encourage us to invest in volunteer work. So that's one comment. The second comment is that those who are working full-time for payment, they also do have some free time to do some volunteer work. So I would encourage people to invest in somewhere between 8 to 16 hours a month on voluntary work. And there are a lot of volunteer-based organizations which you can contribute to. So maybe a reaction from Namrata, reaction from Bhupendra on this, or whatever I just said. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Loy, and for actually highlighting the fact that how important volunteerism is, because somehow, yes, the youth does a lot of internships nowadays. There are a lot of paid internships, unpaid ones also, but we always tend to choose the paid ones, right? And again, volunteerism comes with a purpose in mind. And like sir very well mentioned, that if you know the right objective, you want to work towards climate change, is it disaster risk reduction, there are many organizations that can help you to do that. In fact, I would like to highlight that we currently did a training, 5-day training in Bihar, Central University of South Bihar, and 50% of the participants that were there were NSS volunteers. They were all young youth people who were there, and now we have trained them to become trainers. So apart from education, apart from receiving education from the college, this was a very big, great initiative by the university to involve them in this 5-day training. They have been certified and they can now do their, we shared our PPTs, our presentations, they can train their classmates or any other people further. Even government employees, like very well sir said, retired government employees or people who are retired, and they have a lot of time on hands, they are most welcome to volunteer. Thank you so much for complimenting, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Namrata. Thank you, sir. Shortcut.
Hello.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shaukat. Actually, I am from Kashmir. Actually, मुझे मेरा कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है, लेकिन मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा इस वेबिनार को अटेंड करके, बहुत अच्छा लगा. एक्चुअली मैं IGSS के साथ अभी जुड़ा हूँ एज कम्युनिटी मोबिलाइजर. हम भी अभी यूथ्स के साथ थोड़ा सा काम कर रहे हैं. अब अभी हमारा जो है क्लाइमेट चेंज लिटरेसी पे एक प्रोग्राम चल रहा है. हम जो ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम्स है, पहले हमने वो कम्युनिटी बेस्ड रखे थे. आफ्टर ऑल हमने जब देखा कि कम्युनिटीज में थोड़ा पार्टिसिपेशन कम हो रहा है, लेकिन हमने अब एक काम किया कि हमने अब स्कूल्स और कॉलेज को टारगेट किया है, जहाँ पे हमें बहुत अच्छा रिस्पांस भी मिल रहा है. हम उनमें एक चीज़ ये कर रहे हैं कि जो हमें हर गांव में एक मतलब डिजास्टर कम्युनिटी हमने बनाई, डिजास्टर रिस्क रिडक्शन कम्युनिटीज बनाई है. उनको हम फिर एंगेज करके उसको नियरेस्ट कॉलेज में उन स्टूडेंट्स के साथ भी मिलाते हैं, तो ताकि इनका जो है उनके साथ अच्छा रिलेशनशिप भी हो जाए और वो अनुभव भी हो जाए कि अगर डिजास्टर हो तो ये कम्युनिटी के लेवल पे ऐसे लड़के हैं, इनको हम रिकॉग्नाइज कर रहे हैं. और सेम जो है लड़के, इनको हमने SDRF और जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट अथॉरिटी है उनके साथ भी जोड़ा है. और सिविल डिफेंस में जितने भी लड़के हैं हमारे डिस्ट्रिक्ट में, उसमें ऑलमोस्ट जो 50% जो है वो हमारे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से भी आए हैं. हमने ऐसा थोड़ा इनिशिएट किया है. मैं अपने पैनलिस्ट से थोड़ा रिक्वेस्ट कर रहा हूँ कि थोड़ा इसमें हमें थोड़ा सा गाइड करें कि हम इसको कैसे थोड़ा और अच्छा चैनलाइज कर सके. थैंक यू.
Yes, please. Anybody can answer.
So again, Shaukat, you are doing a great job actually. As you mentioned, अभी काफी थोड़े शब्दों में आपने बता दिया कि ऐसा ऐसा हमने किया, बट आई नो कि कितना एफर्ट लगता है, तो यू ऑलरेडी डूइंग अ ग्रेट जॉब. एंड आई गेस यू मेंशन कि आप और उसको कैसे बेहतर कर सकते हैं और आस्किंग फॉर सम गाइडेंस, दैट इज नॉट पॉसिबल ऑन दिस webinar. Maybe again similar like Abhishek, you may reach out to some organization, and there are, I guess, in disaster management space and climate management space, there is a lots of collaboration is happening, because everyone is of aware कि अकेले से कुछ नहीं होगा. So that's why I request you to like connect with the organization जिनको आप समझते हैं कि वो बेहतर काम कर रहे हैं आपसे, उनके साथ जुड़ जाइए, वो will guide करेंगे. We can connect and we can discuss some best practices. So we can see, and then there are many platforms again where you can find this organization. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any other speakers want to add some more points? Okay, thank you, Shaukat. Thank you for sharing your issue with us, and best wishes for your initiative.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Greetings of the day to everyone present here. Indeed, it was a nice session, and there were a lot of learning outcomes in response to the climate change and the role of the youth that they can play to, I can't say to mitigate, but to reduce and to respond in a very timely and efficient manner. Basically, I just came across the question of Mr. Shaukat sir. So I'm from Kashmir Valley, and I'm currently working in a college as a lecturer in disaster management. There are a number of agencies, for example, SDMA, State Disaster Management Authority, SDRF, that is for the response to any kind of the disaster. And a number of NGOs are currently working in the Kashmir Valley to reduce and minimize the effects of the disasters. So basically, I want to tell the respected sir, in what context they want to, whether they are having any kind of project, whether what actually, in what context they are working currently, and what exactly they want to do in that very project or whatsoever they are carrying forward. In case I can I am in a position to contribute a bit. My assistance is there. They can just contact me, and I will be always there at their doorstep to help in whatsoever context they need.
Great. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for offering your services. And surely what we will do is I will make sure to connect both of you via email, and then later you can, make it further discussion about Godfrey.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Good evening. I'm Godfrey from Center for Youth Development and Activities, Pune. I just want to share some experience. Like previously, when I was working in Mumbai and now also in Pune, like while how we channelize the youth group is we have our own community youth group, as well as we have targeted the local religious places youth group. The reason, for example, churches, mosque, gurudwara, or whether it be the local in Mumbai, there are Ganpati mandals. So we have started training to them in disaster because they are the local people and they know the local area best. For example, if you take Dharavi, there are many small routes over there. So they are the best person to know whenever a disaster happens, what is the easy way to escape, which will minimize the uh, fatality, So that is one of the profession where we also can pull in all the religious institutions. Youth can be channelized in a better way for various social cause. It not only be monsoon or something, but also for the climate change resistance. So these are the points I would like to share. Thank you, and really thank you for the immense learning from various speakers over there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing. We have time for one more questions. If anybody wants to ask, please raise your hand. Otherwise, we will end this webinar. Okay. So let's take it further. So thank you everyone for your active participation. We have come to the end of this event. We are grateful to have you all here today for this webinar on engaging youth in resilience and climate action. I express my gratitude to all the speakers and professionals for sharing their rich and practical experience with us all. And I also thank all the participants for their active involvement during the program. I also look forward to all the speakers, their learning, and we will surely going to reach out to you to how to better engage with your organization and how we can have a more concrete program on engaging young people in disaster management and climate action. So thank you very much. And I would also like to thank all the, all my team for their support in success of this program. So thank you everyone, and we look forward to meet you again soon and have a more active engagement in youth-led and youth-based engagement in DRR and climate action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.